top speed. Wait, this can't be. It's disappeared.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to an Anton & Co. live stream. It has been a minute. I got Brian over here saying, oh no, laughing, thumbs up. Brian, I'm going to make you spend some money today. I got Reach Films over here, Jeff Fagan from Reach Films. It has been a while. Why have I not been live streaming on YouTube? Because I've been live streaming on Instagram. I had this theory last year that my growth was due to the fact that I wasn't live streaming. So I did a little bit of experiment and just took the few months off of YouTube streaming. And then I had Philip, one of the community members, subscribers, text me, or not text me, but like commented on a video that recently of, when you do streams again? I miss doing the streams. And I was like, you know what? So do I. So here we are. Please excuse the powered by StreamYard logo up here in the top. I'm not paying for StreamYard right now. And unfortunately, that means that I've got to basically just let them put their ad on my video. So if we get to a place where streams are beneficial for the channel, if we see growth, if we see views, we may pay for StreamYard again, but right now we're just going for the free option. I am Hassan. Morning, Anson. What's up? It is a lunchtime stream over in the East Coast, probably morning, maybe in other parts of the world, or in the country, wherever you may be from. But yeah, lunchtime stream. I want to do these. I was like, the problem for me is because I have a full-time job that's not YouTube. Like YouTube's not my job. And video creation period is not my job. I have to kind of balance like what time I do have to create content. And honestly, lunchtime on Fridays is usually a time I can kind of get away from work, chat with you guys, and hang out. If you are curious, we're talking about gas right now, but like I am streaming on the Sigma FP straight out of camera. I'm using the forest green profile. I think I've got it dialed in to where like the shadows are raised and the highlights are lowered and all this stuff, but forest green with the Sigma 35mm T15. So Jeff says streams are finally separated in back end. Not sure how it affects algorithm, but it seems not to hurt that much. Hey, I'm here for it. Honestly, while people are coming in, usually it takes a minute for YouTube to tell people about a stream. And we'll get to the topic here in a minute because I have feelings. And kind of on that note, I want to talk about like if I were to do streams, what's the point of them? I always like to have obviously I like to have a point for everything that I do. But for me, YouTube sees my channel as a gear channel or a tech channel, probably is what they classify it as. And so I don't get to that often, and I may pivot at some point. But I don't get to talk about like opinion pieces or like my opinion on things like this, or my opinion on filmmaking, or my opinion on photography, like or I had a buddy of mine, Joe from Driven Films. He was like, why don't you do more educational content? And I'm like, because YouTube never pushes that content for me. And so like because YouTube is not my full-time job, or video creation is not my full-time job, I want to maximize time, effort, results, everything. What's my ROI? And so, I have to treat it like a business in that sense. And so I kind of give YouTube what they want from me. But I think this would be a perfect opportunity or perfect um, kind of medium to have some of these conversations, have uh, you know, candid conversations, opinion conversations. And maybe who knows, maybe I'll start recording these and putting it into a podcast. That's one thing I've wanted to do forever is do a podcast. And so who knows, maybe that's what it turns into. I like hanging out with you guys. That's the biggest thing. Ministry, what's up, man? Dude, so I can't remember your non-ministry film works name, so I apologize. But and remind me if you can. But you had convinced me to buy the DJI 3D Focus, and I bought it, and I canceled my order. I'm sad. Basically, if you guys have not seen anything from Ministry Filmworks, he is also a Sigma FP user, and he put out a short about a wireless follow focus unit that allows you to use DJI's older LiDAR system, the 3D focus system, to basically use it with a Nucleus Nano to do kind of like an autofocus without having a gimbal. So go check out his channel. Jay, what's up? What's up? Morning from Colorado. Awesome. Glad to see you here. Glad to see you here. Jeff says, I love a StreamYard, but regular clients float a bill. Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, not sorry about convincing you to get the, yeah. Oh, what's up, Max? Yeah. So yeah, I think you got that or you made that comment before I said I actually canceled my order. I think I'm going to wait for DJI to actually put out a official like follow focus unit, because I think there's rumors that they're going to put out a follow focus unit that doesn't require their gimbal. And I'm always a fan. Like unfortunately, I'll pay more to get more support. I mean, it's the whole reason I buy Apple computers is because like I don't want to build my own because I don't want to take care of that stuff. I'll pay more to have the support. So absolutely. What's up, Max? I'm going to write that down. Awesome. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I may do these more often. I don't know how often, maybe weekly, maybe bi-weekly, maybe monthly, but I want to do them more. It's a great way for me to connect with you all, with the community. And there's been a lot of new people coming on board with the channel reaching 10K last year. A lot of new faces are part of the community, and this is again a way for me to connect with you all. And I try to have some value in it. Maybe some streams might be just like, let's hang out and chat and ask questions, and and have comments like, so you resisted gas. I did. Y'all, I don't know. I got a chuckle out of this thumbnail. One, I don't know where I was going with that first thought, but I got to check out the thumbnail I'd use for the stream because I think the thumbnail is like, "Is gas toxic?" And I'm like, it's such like a play, like a pun, and dad humor, right? Dad humor. Don't resist gas, just inhale more slowly. I love it. I love it. It's about 8 minutes. I think that should be long enough for YouTube to tell everybody, hey, there's a stream going on. So let's chat. So gas. What is gas, first of all? Gear acquisition syndrome. It's this like and there's a lot of different ways you could probably define it or break it down, but it's basically like the need to buy more gear. And like I do realize, and before I even start, I want to talk about like this is a complete like my channel is kind of based on gas to a certain extent, right? Like I review gear, I review lenses, I review cameras, and so there's an aspect of gas that is my channel. And so I want to clarify like my responsibility in this, like and then we'll kind of talk about what I'm feeling. But my responsibility in this is I always want you guys to see any reviews that I do as informative rather than salesmen, if that makes sense. So like it's funny. I was talking with Joe from Driven. We talk every day. We talk all the time. I was talking with Joe, and we were talking about people using clickbait type thumbnails, like and how that's more compelling sometimes. And I hate using clickbait thumbnails, but sometimes like it's just the nature of the beast with YouTube. And so we were throwing around ideas for some titles. I think it was my Sigma lens collection, my Sigma FP lens collection video. And he was like, what if you did something like the lenses you need to buy right now or something like that? I was like, I don't want to do that because I don't believe that you need to buy this. Like, I want you to know what I'm using to see if it helps you, but I genuinely don't think you have to buy this. And there's some things where I'm like, yes, you need to buy this, like the follow focus unit. You probably should consider that if you're trying to, be more like an autofocus setup with cinema lenses and not have to spend $1,000 on a gimbal. So those are things to consider. But I think that's where I see my videos, and my responsibility, um, as far as my role in gas, so to speak. So with that being said, how is gas toxic? And I want this to be a conversation, so please leave a comment. If you're just joining the stream, let me know where you're coming from. Let me know, where you guys are at. I always like to know where people are hailing from, as they say, from parts unknown. Sorry, WWE or wrestling is my life. Anyways, so gas, this need for buying new gear. And why this conversation, why am I now really kind of wanting to talk about this? Well, it's been something I've been obsessing over for the past week. If you guys aren't familiar, Lumix put out the S5, or announced, they haven't put it out yet, the S5 Mark II, and the Mark IIX later this year. And so being that I own an S5 for now, I felt the need, do I upgrade? I have to have this. Like, I have to have this tech. I have to, like, phase detect autofocus. Like, I have to have it. Like, I have to have ProRes internal full size H. There's always something that gives me a reason to justify the purchase of a specific piece of gear. And sometimes, like, I'm not good at saying no. Like, that's the whole reason I own Sigma Cine lenses, is because those were a investment into my craft. And I love the lenses, and I had sold off a bunch of gear to afford them. Would I recommend it for everyone? No, but still, like, that's why I did it. But I found myself with the S5 Mark II and Mark IIX being like, do I upgrade for the simple fact of, like, it's the latest and greatest thing, and I need the latest and greatest, right? Like, I need this. Makes sense. This is a no-brainer. I have to have this. And through the course of the week, I kind of started, like, internally fighting against that notion, because it's like, no. And you don't necessarily need the latest and greatest. You don't necessarily need, like, if it makes sense for your production, if it makes your production easier, and that equates to less time doing a specific thing that ultimately makes you more money, then absolutely, right? But if it's just, I need a full-size HDMI, I need a black on black camera, like, is that a need, or is that just extreme gas, and so I think that's the part that I struggled with, and really wanted to bring to you all and talk about, is because I am actually buying a new camera. Well, kind of. I haven't fully decided yet, but I'll put it out in the universe. It's not a new camera, but I am probably selling I have two FP bodies. One that stays converted to PL, and then one that stays in the L mount. So I'm probably selling one of my FP bodies, and probably selling the S5 to get the FPL. Which brings me to the other reason why I think gas could be toxic, and actually bad for creators, and bad for artists. Because when we get caught up in the gas, just for the sake of gas, just for the sake of acquiring new gear, the thing you don't necessarily think about is you spent all that time understanding that system, understanding that camera, understanding how to get the best image possible from that camera. And because of the need to acquire gear, you are potentially sacrificing the knowledge that you have gained for that tool. And we can go into like cameras and lenses being tools and maybe another conversation, but you're sacrificing that experience with that device to go for whatever is latest and greatest and flashiest and what have you. And there's always that kind of like grass is greener on the other side. And unfortunately, usually grass is not greener, right? And so for me, like the reason why I feel like buying the FPL is not gas is because one, it's a 2-year-old camera, right? Came out in like 2021. No, yeah, almost 2-year-old camera. And it is still in a system that I've come to absolutely love. Like, I can't tell you how much I love this camera. Like, it is not the perfect camera in the slightest, but what I've been able to make with it and what I've been able to do with it, I have not had this much excitement for creating with any other camera system than I do with the FP and now with the FPL. And the reason why I went with the FPL or why I decided the FPL is because this channel and myself, it's kind of one and the same. I'm doing a lot more photography this year. One of my goals, there's a couple of goals that I have. One of my goals for 2023 is to sharpen my photography skills to the point where I'm printing photos as artwork, at least in my own home, if not putting it out for the public. That's my goal. There's something about print photography that I've just always been enthralled with. Being able to capture a moment or a aesthetic and have somebody be able to. The thing about filmmaking is it's an investment of time, right? Like if I create a film, if I create a YouTube video, if I create any type of moving content with imagery, it takes people time and they have to sit down and they have to, watch the entirety of that piece of art to appreciate it. With photography, you can look and feel for a moment and it gives you almost that same appreciation of that art, but in a different time frame and maybe in a different manner. And so filmmaking, videography, not going anywhere for this channel. That's, I own these beautiful, very not cheap cinema lenses. They're not going anywhere. I love filmmaking. I love videography. I love the medium of film, but I want to add to that medium. And so that's why the 61 megapixel sensor from the FPL is enticing for print photography. You can do it with 24. It's doable, but I like that. I like being able to crop in. And then also, I can't tell. I cannot relay to you how many times I've heard since the S5 Mark II. When do you think the FP is going to have phase detect? And I said this and I did a dual stream with Caleb Hoover last week, and I said it's there. It's in the FPL. Like the FPL has phase detect autofocus. It actually was the first L mount lens or L mount camera to have phase detect autofocus. This is not a new thing for the L mount Alliance. The FPL had it 2 years ago. Now, is it the thing that I said about the S5 Mark II is like you've got to get the software where it needs to be too, not just like put the tech in there. You got to have the software to tell what's happening and where to determine and everything. So I think the software for the FPL is still needing some tweaks. But for what I'm using for single shot autofocus, like that was one thing that got me excited about photography with the FP. I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab some I series lenses and just walk around and do street photography and click away. But the thing is like with the contrast autofocus for with the FP, it often missed my critical focus for even single shot autofocus. And so this past week doing the review that I did, which if you haven't seen it, Sigma just put out the 60 to 600 millimeter lens, and I did a review. Go check it out. I love it. It's one of my favorite videos I've done on the channel, period. I had so much fun making it. But using it for the past week and snapping these pictures of wildlife, things that are in constant motion, and have the FPL, like, sure, there's times it hunted, but having the FPL be able to snap critical focus with the phase detect autofocus was just a dream. And so I will be moving to that. I'm sorry for my Lumix fan base. Why I may be selling the S5. So yes. So all that to say, like, I know this system, right? I know how to use this system, and I've learned this system. And I think there's still things I'm learning about the system, about the FP family. But to that point, like, the more that you are switching brands, and this is not a hot take on, like, if you're in the YouTube space, like, was it Cam? I always forget Cam's last name. He switched from Canon to Sony. I could care less. Honestly, I love that he did it. The reasons he listed off, I'm like, I'm here for it. If it makes sense for you, it makes sense for you. Like, don't say like gas is toxic, never switch. No, if it makes sense for you, if it makes sense for the project that you're doing and the things that you're creating, then that's why you buy stuff, not just because there's a full-size HDMI. Quick break for some comments. So we've got let's see here. We've got Max that says, I moved away from gas lately when it comes to cameras. I think it's smarter to rent a good camera, fair, and invest in some lights, sound equipment, and that I can rent out. Absolutely. Absolutely. I just spent like $300 on upgrading the audio for the FP. Because one of the things I may try to do this year, I haven't decided if I have the bandwidth, is to do some doc work. And I've always wanted to do doc work. Kind of, I had that same creative feeling and love for doc work that I am just talking about with print photography. So it's one thing I've wanted to do. So I upgraded the audio. I have some other stuff coming in so I can do more doc work, because the FP has terrible audio. So you guys will probably see a rig tour of the FP for like documentary work here soon. Philip, I blame you for this stream. I blame you 100% for this stream. Your comment on your video the other day of when we're going to do streams again, like, resonated with me. And I said, okay, fine. Let's stream again. Philip, what's up? I could take credit because I told you a couple days ago I missed your streams. I missed you too, Philip. So welcome. If you guys haven't seen Philip's channel, honestly, like, shout out everyone's channel here. Philip just put out a couple really good videos on kind of the same topic of, like, the S5 Mark II and Lumix's announcement with the new cameras, and kind of just talking about very counterculture with what's going on YouTube right now, because pretty much everybody's like, oh, these are amazing cameras. And so I'm really liking the counter conversation that people are having, and Philip is one having that conversation. Not the only one, but one that I've seen. Brian, here. What's up, Brian? I'm gonna make you buy some cameras today. Brian, actually, real talk. With the EOS M, was it XL? No. What's the newest one that I can't remember his name right now. IMCE put out. Are you getting it? Are you getting the new box, the 3D printed option for the EOS M? You should buy a camera. Jeff says, I feel like I was on the same path, moving through Canon RF bodies and now on Sony. I did do it to see what worked for videography side of my business. And did make review videos at the same time. And that's the part where I honestly am like, I still may pick up a S5 Mark II X, just because I am in the L mount ecosystem, and as a YouTube personality or as a reviewer, like, I feel like it's somewhat responsible to do review on these things, but probably more responsibly, I'm probably going to end up renting them. So yeah. After a year, I finally found the right camera for me, but just went through too many cameras, lol. So wish I rented some of them, exactly, like we do for cinema stuff. Absolutely. What camera did you land on? Is it FX30? I can't remember what the last one was. Matt. Matt drives. I find for myself, I stop and ask myself, what does the new gear do that my current gear does not do? Also, does it solve the problem I have? Also, does it solve a problem I have with current gear? That's a great question you should be asking, because again, there is a level of gas that's justifiable. You know, I can't tell you how many micro HDMIs I've broken from the Sigma FP. And so if they ever put out FP that just has a full size HDMI, I'd probably buy it. And so I'm not knocking people that want the S5 Mark II just for the full size HDMI. But again, there is that like balance of like, is it worth? Because even if I sold the S5, I'm only getting like $1,000 for it. Is it worth another $1,000 out of my pocket to get full size H? No, like for me. And so there has to be more than stuff like that. So absolutely. Absolutely. Sounds like FPL meets that for you. Absolutely. You know, I have conditioned myself with the FP to not film in high frame rates, period. Right. Not because the FP can't, it can just in full HD, but the best image coming out of this camera is 4K, right? So I've conditioned myself to shoot in 24 frames per second in 4K. And it took a lot to get used to that, because I was one of these people that relied heavily on 60, 48 frames per second, in the fact that like I wanted to use this camera more and cater to its strengths, forced me to shoot 24 frames per second only. Um, and so I don't know where I was going with that thought necessarily, but yeah, I mean, the FPL, it still has a lot of the opportunities, still has a lot of the weaknesses that the FP has. But again, like, you know, it does have the improved autofocus. It does have the 61 megapixel camera. My daughter is about to start doing ballet, or does do ballet, and is going to be doing performances. She's 5, so you can imagine. Love it. Love every second of it. But with the FPL, because it has that 61 megapixel camera in 4K, I can crop up to 2.5 times, what it is normally in full frame. And so it takes my like 65 millimeter f2 to what, like, I think I did the math, it was like 170 or something like that. And so I have a near telephoto and gives me where I need to go. And if I wanted to go even more, I had to get bad seats. Maybe I'm late that day. I can do up to 5 times the zoom in 1080. And so like I'm good, right? So that's a little head benefit for me. Jay says it was a great video. Thank you. Thank you. YouTube doesn't think so. It is not pushing it to anyone. It's like my life right now. Philip, I've been writing some notes on gas too. So if I come out with a video stealing your talking points, it was already in the works. Dude, I don't, you could literally say why to buy the FP in 2023, which will probably be a video here coming up here soon. And I wouldn't care. Look, we'll all share the bread, break the bread. I don't know what the term is there. It's the same one. Jeff says, for now, I'm using the FX30 for videography work and Komodo for higher end commercial doc narrative. Not sure if I'm keeping the R7 or not, still running a few more tests with some anamorphic stuff. Did Canon finally, I feel like I saw something the other day that made me think that Canon actually had anamorphic support in their cameras. Is that true? That'd be interesting. Philip says, all these cameras are ridiculously amazing. Compared to what people had 15 years ago, the cameras aren't the limiting factor. They're really not. It's funny because I read off the specs of the FP and people are like, 4K 30. And I'm like, yeah, no 6K, no. No 120, no. No 60, no. It's I'm good. Like, I've made it work. If I really want slow motion, I'll just go down to 1080 and upscale. But like, no, I'm good. It's really funny. Like, I hate this like I don't get me wrong. I love talking about new tech and new gear and stuff like that. But like the actual like process of people putting out camera gear for the sake of like putting these specs that are just like ridiculous is kind of annoying sometimes. Like, I think I'm still annoyed by the Ursa 12K because I'm like, who needs that? And I'm sure there are people that need that. Like VFX people need it. That's about it. But like, still, like, I'm just like, why? Why is that the thing that we're doing? And so yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Jeff says not on the R7 or lower end stuff, but like R5. Does the R5C have anamorphic support? That'd be kind of cool. I wish they did. Max says I still fully in love with the Sigma FP and haven't been suffering for gas except when it comes to grip equipment. Fair enough. Which hardly anyone talks about, but is the most widely used gear on any set. Yes, you are very correct. And I wish that YouTube was, I don't know if whose fault it is. I don't know if it's the general consumer's fault or if it's YouTube's fault. But generally speaking, I have a joke with one of my YouTube buddies, Pav from Pav SZ, where I'm like, I will do one light review a year because a company will probably send me a light and I'll be like, I should probably have another light. But I do like one a year because they never get views. And unfortunately, it goes back to, I don't want you to like get things mixed up. Like I don't do what I do just for views, but like it needs to have a return on investment for my time. I mentioned that my daughter's 5 years old. I don't want to be stuck in my office when I could be spending time with her or my wife or, even just decompressing myself. Let's family aside, taking care of yourself mentally. I want things to have an ROI. So, I think there's a way to do grip. There's probably a way to do grip successfully. Very few channels have found that success. I think there are some channels that do really good light reviews and are known for light reviews. But most of the people that do gear reviews for cameras and lenses don't get that kind of love and don't get that kind of like, return on investment of time. Philip, I got to run, catch the replay. Have a great weekend, everyone. Philip, thank you. I look forward to your video. I will come comment. So that being said, yeah, I mean, I would love to see more grip equipment and more practical equipment. And maybe this year I need to get better at, making stuff that I know is probably not going to get a ton of views, because the community probably needs it more. That's something that I would encourage to do because I probably will do this more is come join my Discord. We have a gear chat channel and that's where all the B-sides go, to be honest. Like if I'm sharing like stuff that I'm testing out and I don't think I have enough information to put out a full review, or I don't think it's going to do very well on the channel, a lot of times I'll either put that on like an Instagram reel or even post on it on my Discord. I go through waves where I'm super active in the Discord and waves where I'm not. I'm trying this year to be a little bit better at being active and adding additional value to the Discord. But what's nice about it too is there's also people in that gear chat channel that is not me. Like there are people that are probably actually, this is their full-time job and they have feelings or opinions on that gear. So come join the Discord. We'll have fun. Jeff says, I have been doing stuff like that as shorts. Yes. I will say I stay away from shorts. Shorts are, talk about not an ROI, and shorts bug me because like, unless you're doing something trending, which is usually not very creative, or it's really hard to keep it on brand. The shorts just don't do well, but reels do for some reason. I could post the same reel on Instagram and on a short on YouTube, and the reel blows up, and the short just craps out. It'd be a whole podcast topic: things that I hate about and love about YouTube. As a creator, it's very interesting to see those trends. So, that said, yeah. So gas. Again, there is a place for it. There is, I think, if the gear makes sense for you, if it solves a problem for you, by all means. These lights back here. So I just shout out to these $50 lights. I have the links in the description below if you're curious. There are these tube lights, right? For years, I've been using these crappy shelf lights as like these accent lights in the back, or practicals in the back. But those very budget, I think they're like $20 at max, shelf lights, have no battery indicator, no indicator of the level of light you're using, no color temperature indicator. They're really shelf lights, right? They're not meant for video work. I took a little bit of investment. I didn't go full on like aperture tube lights or even Zhiyun's new tube lights. I spent $50 a piece on these two lights back here, and I've used them twice. This is the second time. And I can tell you right now, like, worth the investment, because, I can see where the battery life is. I don't have to guess if it's going to crap out on me unless it's just defective. I have RGB, I have effects, I don't even know if I have app support. I may have app support. I need to check into it. But like, they are back here doing what I need them to do, and they're a little bit more reliable. And so I don't know where I was going with this. I complete brain fart, but these are things that like I would turn into shorts, or or I know I was saying, like, if it solves a problem. You're right. So if it solves a you being me, if it solves a problem, then that's when gas makes sense, or buying gear makes sense, when it solves a problem. If it's just like, if you have an S5 and you want an S5 Mark II, by all means, buy the S5 Mark II. But don't feel like you have to. Like, just like, that's where it makes sense for me. Like, if you have an S5, buy an S5 Mark II if it makes sense for you for the upgrades. But don't like switch from Sony to Lumix because Lumix has maybe some better offerings and now it has good autofocus. No, stay with Sony. It's not worth the upgrade. It's not worth the switch. It's not worth learning new color grading unless it really solves an issue for you. Go with what you have. There's so many good cameras out there. Who knew that, a year ago, if you had told me that from a Blackmagic 6K Pro, Pocket 4K, OG Pocket camera, Panasonic S1 or Lumix S1H, Lumix S5, I had Sony A7 III, 63 A6300. Who would have thought that from all those cameras, I would have picked the quirkiest of all of them with the Sigma FP, simply from the fact the more I shot with it, the more I enjoyed the process and the more that I appreciated what it gave me. And so it's not always the specs. Like, the reason I sold the S1H, the biggest reason, I made a video of like why I sold the S1H for the S5, and all those reasons were true. But the biggest reason was because I wanted to use the FP as my A camera, and it didn't make sense from a specs point of view that the FP was going to be my A camera when I had an S1H. And so I was like, I don't want this problem. I don't want to, I'm just going to solve this problem. I'm selling the S1H. Would it have been a fine B cam? Absolutely. But it didn't, specs wise, didn't make sense for me to have this, Netflix approved borderline cinema camera be my B camera to my little quirky FP. And we can argue that Cinema D&G just is superior than everything, but still. So that said, Eric. Buying camera gear is no problem. It's hundreds of hours of research. It really is. I cannot. Every time I go to buy new gear, I feel like I never get sleep. Like that's all my brain thinks about. Like this week, I've like, okay, I need to book. I usually sell to MPB. I get a lot less money than selling on eBay, but I don't deal with eBay buyers. But MPB. So MPB is usually who I sell to. I've booked the S5. I've got a quote for the FP. I need to book it. But I'm sitting here like, okay, what if I sell the S5 and the FP with maybe a lens? I can justify the cost of the FPL. Like there's so much. I'm like doing all these different things. And that's me knowing what camera I want to get. Much less if I just gave myself an open-ended, like, I'm just looking for a new. I mean, I did that last week where I was like, I'm looking for a new camera. I'm bored. Let's get a new camera. And I was like, okay, I want to sell the S5 because like I'm just kind of like out of love with that camera right now. Let's do the Canon C200. I want a cinema camera. I want a big boy cinema camera. Let's do the C200. I mean, that's I wouldn't say it's like big boy, but it's bigger boy, right? Let's get a cinema camera. And so I did the research. I watched so many videos. I asked so many people in different Facebook groups. I was like, what do you guys think? Is this going to be a good camera to use with the FP and like all these different things? I'm working on trying to plan for a doc. I feel like I would need this camera for doc work. Like so many different things. And finally I was like, this is dumb. I love my camera. Like, I'm just going to make my camera work. Like, I will spend $300 on a Zoom F3 to be able to put on my mount or my rig so that I can rig up a phantom powered decent preamp shotgun mic for a dock. And I can pass it through to the FP directly, and so it can actually bake it into the footage. So, like that's what my result was. But I went through all this different research to figure that out. And so you're right. Like, it's no problem buying a new camera. Not to mention like where are you getting the funds from? Because I mean, like, let's be real. Like, I know for myself, like some of these things, like I'm probably putting on credit, and that makes me nervous. I hate putting things on credit. I know I can pay it off, but it's just like, who knows what happens in a year, in 6 months? Like you could lose a job, and there's always these uncertainties. So like I will always preach, don't put anything on credit, even though I generally put things on credit. But then I break out into hives and pay it off in a month anyways. So Brian says, I'm back. Took a shower during your talk. Thanks, buddy. I do fantasize about selling it all and going for an FP. If it only had, you can literally probably put anything in after that ... Like there's so many things it doesn't have. The FP is one, like people say all the time, like don't buy the camera for what you think it can do or what you hope for in the future, like buy for what it is now. And I bought the FP very early on, like before it started its like trend up with content creators and filmmakers. But I bought it because it intrigued me. And it stayed my B and C camera for the longest time. Honestly, there was a point where I was about to sell it. I was just like, this camera doesn't really get love from me, doesn't get as much use. But and it lacks this, it lacks that, it lacks everything, to be production ready. But then I don't know, something switched for me last year when I was using the S1H and was using the FP in tandem with it. I started to it was when I started grading a little bit differently. When I started to grade a little bit differently, I started to see what the camera could do. Not from a standpoint of like, sure, it's uncompressed cinema DNG raw, but more from I haven't been grading it correctly, or I haven't been grading it to my taste, the way I should be doing it. And so when I started doing that, I started picking up this camera more and more, and it got to where I was like, I'm picking up this camera 99% of the time. And I sold the, that goes into the conversation of like making the S1H my B camera, selling it, getting the S5, and even with the S5, like the S5 is sat in my tool chest over here almost the whole time I've had it, just because I pick up this camera. This is the camera. So yeah, there are a lot of things it doesn't have. Absolutely, I'll be the first person to say that. But yeah, Flippy, interesting. That is a very like, huh? Fair enough. Fair enough. I will say the things that I have solved the Flippy screen with. I'm going to make a video probably in the next like month or two, kind of like my 3-year review, my long-term review of the FP, and we'll try to find things I haven't talked about before because I've made a lot of different videos on like what I think about the FP. But I'm probably going to do like what problems it has and how I've solved it. I will say the EVF11 has been a huge problem solver for me with the FP as far as the Flippy is concerned. Yes, you're attached to an EVF, but I can look at that thing from all angles except for obviously like, vlogging style, because I can't like reverse the EVF. That would be the thing for me. Caleb Pike actually put out a pretty cool monitor a couple days ago, and I was really intrigued by it. It's like a 3-inch monitor. And it's not like the best monitor, but it gives you a point of reference. And I was like, if I didn't record to the Blackmagic Video Assist all the time, I'd probably get this because it seems really, really cool. You'll have to go look at Caleb Pike's channel and like his like last 2 videos. I think it's probably the last 2 videos. Not that I'm trying to solve everybody's problem to buy the FP. I do have a secret like mission and goal for myself to convert everyone to an FP. Period. Every time somebody says I'm buying an FP, like I'm like, welcome. Hashtag FP fam. I had somebody voice memo me on Instagram yesterday. He was like, hey man, real quick, I'm about to frantically go buy all these things because I bought an FP to your recommendation, which I was like, I have to get used to this fact that people buy things because of me. But I've been doing this for 3 years. You think I'll get used to it? But he was like, I'm about to go frantically buy a whole bunch of things because I think I need to have an SSD hooked up to the FP to ultimately record to the Blackmagic Video Assist. But I'm not sure. Can you give me some advice? And I was like, here, I sent him a video. I was like, you got to go into your settings and tell HDMI to record RAW instead of just being HDMI output. And that was it. And so like, I was just like, welcome to the fam, like, I'm slowly converting everyone. As of now, I'm focusing on much needed light purchase. Awesome. AMRAN or expensive storm aperture light is what I'll be needing for mostly indoor shots. Fair. I like that the things that matter. Lights. Please buy more lights. Saw that. Absolutely. I'm gonna butcher this. I'm sorry. Adlet. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Honestly, the improvement of gear makes the lives of run and gun shooters specifically a million times easier. Just provides a general sense of reliability. When you work in digital marketing too, for sure. I mean, that's the thing too, is like, I was talking about this with one of my friends that doesn't talk about cameras. He was like, what is the point? Like, what is the best camera? Like, what's the point of like these cameras putting out new cameras all the time? And which one's the best? And I was like, honestly, that's so subjective because like every camera is really good right now. It's just a matter of like which one makes your life easier. And which one, because ultimately we talked about this before, right? I said this at the beginning of the stream. Ultimately, this is where it makes financial sense for you is you buy gear because it helps you turn around content faster, which in turn helps you create what you're creating faster and makes it easier for you, which could potentially turn into more money because time is money. And there's this, ultimately there could be a return of investment for you, but there's times where it's not, right? And so that's what I think the bigger thing there. But absolutely, the improvement for run and gun filmmakers, especially with IBIS, is great, even though I have no ibis here. Going back to Eric's, if it only had ibis. Actually, I'm kind of off the ibis train. I'll have a whole conversation on that. On the original S5, the peaking quality wasn't as good when shooting 4K as it is in 1080. Does the S5 Mark II do the same? I don't know. I didn't actually have the S5 Mark II in hand. I would reach out to Caleb Hoover, my buddy Pav from Pav SZ. They have both been using it. I think Caleb probably does more video. I think Pav does video too, but I don't know if he uses autofocus quite a bit. So I don't know if he would be using focus peaking. So I would check in maybe with Caleb. He should have some information for you. So I wish I had gotten that camera. I on the LCD. I did notice that actually. Or I noticed that like on the S5, the focus peaking, it was either one of the two. It was really good pre-record or post-record. Like one of them, the intensity of the peaking would get more depending on which one you were. I can't remember if it was pre-record or post-record. But yeah, it was really weird. So I definitely agree. All right, I'm going to start winding things down. If you guys do have any feelings, thoughts, I'm probably going to keep this up for a bit. I don't know what the strategy around YouTube is as far as like, should you make live streams private or not? And so I'll probably keep this up for a bit, at least until I stream next time. If you have any, I'm probably gonna hang out here for maybe a couple minutes. If you have any more comments, hit me up in the chat. If you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comments below. Like, what do you guys think? Is gear overrated, or is the gear that you should be looking at the ones that people aren't talking about, like lights and audio? Super big sigh. Sold my GFX S1R and kept only the FP. Love it. Awesome. The false sync speed is my only hurdle. Fair. I solved it in studio tethering by live streaming to the Shinobi for review with enhancers in studio. Awesome. I like that fix. I've never tried to do any type of a sync with the FP. I just assumed that it's not an option, so I just left it alone. But that's awesome. Wow. GFX S1R and the FP won out. That's incredible. This is where am I pointing to? This is single-handedly the one comment that's going to win my war of converting everyone to the FP. Damn. Those are good cameras. Those are good cameras. That's awesome. Brian, tomorrow's filmmakers yesterday put out a video. Oh, that's tomorrow's filmmakers is a channel. Put out a video where they demonstrated that you can create professional quality ads plus videos by just using a $100 camera, Canon Rebel T2i, using Magic Lantern. Absolutely. The only qualm I have with Magic Lantern goes back to the same thing I had about the Axum Cine that we were talking about earlier, is like, it's not how the camera was intended to be used. And so like inevitably there's going to be something that goes wrong. And that paranoia makes me not use it. So Tony says you can build a house with any hammer, but some hammers will make building better. Same with cameras and gear. Thanks for your videos. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like sometimes the image is easier. I used to think that the FP was super inconvenient, right? Like it's not studio ready. But honestly, I can probably make content easier with the FP than I can any camera. It's so funny. For this review this past week, I don't know, it's not like hilarious, but like for this review this past week, I was filming. If you hadn't seen the review, please do first. But there was randomly next to the co-working space that I work with, or I work at, there was a group of deer, and one of them was an albino deer, and I was like, where am I? Am I in some like fantasy movie right now? Like, what's happening? And so I took the S5. I think I was already shooting with the S5. I was out doing something. My friend told me about this, and I came out there, I started filming, doing some photography, and I kept saying, I really wish I knew how to use this camera. I really wish I knew how to use this camera. And that goes back to my first point is like, the problem with gas, the problem with buying new gear is you kind of unlearn what you spent so much time learning. The S5 is very capable, but in my hands, I can't shoot faster than I can with the FP. That's probably spec wise less capable because I've taken the time to learn this. And that's why, like, some people, artists or, people that work with their hands will sometimes use tools that are not the latest and greatest because the tool that they've been known to use is just the one that got them the results that they are looking for. And they know how to get the results faster with this inferior tool than with the latest and greatest. And I think that's the point that I want to have with this whole stream, this whole topic is know the system, know the camera you work. If you work with an EOS M with Magic Lantern and you trust it and you're able to get content and good artwork out of it, go with that. Don't feel like you need to buy FX30. I took a break from the S5 Mark II. I always feel like I was going too hard on it, but like FX30, FX3, Canon R7, a freaking Black Magic camera, Sigma camera. Use the camera that is going to give you the results that you want as quickly as you want it. That's not holding you back. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the latest and greatest. It means that that's subjective, right? And so that was a long rant. But go with what makes you create art. This is what I love about it, right? Like the whole reason I'm staying with the FP family, with the FP and hopefully soon the FPL, is the content I make with it makes me happy. I don't, like I said, I don't do this professionally. Like I do it professionally in the sense of like I make stuff for the channel. And so I don't necessarily, I'm not tied to I need specific things for my projects. And so I get to have that luxury of, having cameras because what I create with them just makes me happy and I love creating with them. And I think even to a certain extent, people that are in this for getting paid can still benefit from that, of like what helps you, what makes you feel like it's more of your companion than it is just your necessity, right? I got a couple more here. They did this while using pro lighting and pro grading. Yeah, absolutely. There's a plethora of videos. Like, give a filmmaker an iPhone and give a beginner a Red, and you're going to have better content from the filmmaker with the iPhone. So, absolutely. Adelaide, again, sorry if I butchered your name. The FP is such a fascinating unit, honestly. Despite lacking the rolling shutter, it was a diamond for indie filmmakers. The reason I sold it was because only because you wasn't fit for my work area. Fair. I mean, again, it may not be for everyone, right? It is one of those. And again, I use the FP, but honestly, this channel is for any filmmaker, photographer. Hopefully I can benefit everyone. So it's a great camera. Same thing can be said about like the OG pocket camera. Same thing can be said about so many different little gym cameras. But at the end of the day, like if it doesn't make sense for your workflow, then it doesn't make sense for your workflow. Observation. You're really on point today. Thank you. Goodson, what's up, man? Nice to watch you. FP one love. Absolutely. Hashtag FP fam. I'm making t-shirts. I need to make t-shirts. Are you streaming by using FP? I read that the Sigma FP can be connected to PC streaming. Did you try it? I am absolutely on the FP right now. I'm on the FP with my Sigma Cine lens, the 35mm T15. When I hopefully pick up the FPL, I'll probably stream with that because it does charge while streaming instead of having to. I almost knocked over my camera instead of having to use a dummy battery for the FP. So absolutely, I always stream with the FP. I'm streaming with the FP in the forest green color profile. I think I've taken down the saturation a little bit, and oh god, what did I do? I'm like +2 in the shadows and -2 in the highlights. So this is straight out of camera. I'm interested only in moody footage these days. Same. That's what my channel is basically built off of. Sort of retired, but got involved in some art projects. Awesome. Experimenting with video from the X100V, amazing camera. Feeling like something full frame would be good. D750. Maybe. I've never used the D750, so I'm not sure. But I mean, honestly, just go the GFX, not $10,000, but go with the GFX. I don't know. I'd be interested. You should check out my buddy John Branch, John Branch from John Branch 4 Photography. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5. But yeah, John Branch. He's a Fuji through and through. He would have a recommendation for you. Okay, yeah. Sorry. I see what you're saying. Got it. So I'm assuming then that would be I sold it only because it wasn't fit for my work area. Absolutely. Fair points. Man, this is actually we've been able to keep like 10 to 12 people consistently in the stream. And that for a first stream back, that's not bad. That is not bad. So absolutely. Thank you guys all for joining. Lunchtime for me is over. So again, if you're watching this after the fact, please leave a comment what your thoughts are on the topic. And we'll chat and we'll talk. And hopefully soon I'll have an FPL to talk about along with the FP. All right, that's it. As always, thank you guys for joining. Go and find your journey. Go embrace life. Peace. See you guys. Thanks for joining. I'm going to say this to camera a little bit better. Thank you for joining. Go watch my review from yesterday. I would love it. It's great. Please.